I was on my way to the synagogue probably at about 20 to 10 this morning, and I received a phone call from a friend of mine who volunteers with the CST, the Community Security Trust, to tell me not to go, to tell my family not to go, that there'd been a terrorist incident at the synagogue and that somebody was dead. That was the first that I knew about it.
Tell us a little bit more about this congregation. I understand it's a large Ashkenazi Orthodox synagogue in North Manchester. How long has it been established? 1935 built, but it presumably has a big and well-established Jewish community of worshippers there.
Absolutely. By size, it's one of the largest Jewish synagogues in Manchester. It has a capacity of around 900. At that time of the morning, because the service had just started, it probably would have had maybe 50 or 60 people inside, which I suppose is small by comparison to the total number of people that would have been there later on in the day. The Rabbi Walker, is a good friend of mine, engages in a significant amount of interfaith work with other faith communities across Greater Manchester, including the Muslim community. And it's a vibrant community, young families, older people that have been members there for decades. Really a very welcoming place to be.
And have you managed to talk to anybody who was inside the synagogue about their experience?
No, I've not managed to speak to anybody who was there. Obviously, it's Yom Kippur, it's the holiest day of the Jewish year. So for many Jewish people, they won't go on their phone or use any communication devices. I was there on that gate that you've seen in the news doing a voluntary security shift 10 days ago during the Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish festival. And what I can say is that this attack is a culmination of something that the Jewish community have been fearing for 2 years. We've been faced with a tsunami of Jew hatred since October the 7th, vandalism, physical attacks, online abuse, mistreatment in the NHS by medics. Our university students have been intimidated and been attacked on campus. We've had hate marches every week throughout our streets with disgusting Holocaust imagery comparing Jews to Nazis. And ultimately, almost every Jew in this country realized that this day would come. I never thought it would happen at my synagogue, to my friends, to my rabbi, in my city, but it's something that we feared would come and has happened because there has been such inaction to tackle this wave of hatred targeting the Jewish community in the UK over a conflict 2,500 miles away.
Indeed. And Raphi, we don't know the motivation of the person who carried out these attacks. I mean, this is supposition on your part, but it is clear that he was targeting a synagogue. Talk to us about the security that you carried out. Tell us a little bit about that. This is a group of volunteers who help around the country. Why did you feel it was important to do that? And what kind of support has there been within the Jewish community for that need?
It's important to say at the outset that every Jewish organisation in this country, every Jewish school, every Jewish synagogue, any Jewish social care organisation has security and large fences around it. We're the only faith-based community in the UK that has to have 24-hour security. And I think that in and of itself tells a very sad and tragic story about the times that we live in. Now, obviously, the Jewish community has the CST, the Community Security Trust, who do an incredible work, the voluntary organisation, protecting our community, providing volunteer guards and volunteer patrols, and they work very, very closely with the police forces and the counter-terrorism agencies because the Jewish community is under constant threat of attack. In addition to that, when it's the Sabbath or High Holy Days, then members of the synagogue itself will volunteer to supplement that security and supplement the paid security that is on the gates, to add an extra layer of checks to make sure that people coming into the synagogue are known, that they're there for legitimate reasons. And so we all do our bits. Parents do that outside Jewish day schools. And it happens everywhere because we realize that we all have to play our part in protecting our community, because sadly, we are under constant threat as a UK Jewish community.
And you are doing that but without any kind of arms or anything. I mean, what would you know about the level of security that this synagogue would have? Would it have been somebody just like yourself, a volunteer, who was on the door today?
There would have been. I know exactly who was on the door today because I was there last night. There were 2 paid-for security guards, and I hope and pray that they are okay. And they would have been supplemented by 2 volunteer members from the community. who would have been wearing stab vests and high-vis jackets, equipped with walkie-talkies. This synagogue, Heaton Park, has a substantial wall around it, quite a strong gate. I'm not quite sure how this terrorist managed to gain access to it with his vehicle. The synagogue is situated on a main arterial road, so lots of people drive past it on a regular basis. The doors then are locked and opened once you get inside that synagogue, so people can. So there are different layers, multiple layers of security, and sadly, that's what synagogues across the country have to implement. And as I said again, it's really important to state we're the only faith community in this country that has to have this level of security. And I think it's time that people across our society ask why it is that the Jewish community require this. We've seen today why that is, but what action now, firm action, needs to be taken to ensure that we are not targeted again and again and again. The late Chief Rabbi Lord Sachs said that anti-Semitism is the lightest of sleepers, and it is. And since October the 7th, it has awoken with a bang, and the Jewish community has been the target of that incessantly. So much so that many Jewish people in this country are questioning whether we have a future in this country at all because of that level of hate and intimidation. And do we want our children and grandchildren to grow up here experiencing what they might do on campus or in the NHS or in the workplace? And it's time now that our leadership, political leadership, civil leadership, took an absolutely significant role in stamping it out once and for all.
What do you make of the Prime Minister's comments? He did say that additional assets are going to the synagogues. We will do everything to keep our Jewish community safe. Do you feel that you have his ear?
I welcome the Prime Minister's commitment. Every Jewish person will welcome more assets to make our community safer. But I think it goes beyond that. It's not just about physical assets. It's about stamping down on the hatred that has been allowed to flourish. There's an NHS doctor that's currently under investigation. It's all over the news and social media. One of the things she has said is that the Free Hospital in London is a cesspit of Jewish supremacy. Now, what Jewish patient can go to be treated by her, for example, and feel that they'll be treated ethically and safely? I'll give you one personal example. I wear a Star of David around my neck. I had an appointment in the NHS about a year ago to remove a potentially cancerous mole on my back. I took this off because I wasn't sure that the doctor I was seeing, because of the incidences that we've experienced in the NHS, would actually treat me and say, you know what, they might say there's nothing wrong with it when there was. Jewish people are afraid. And we see that our city centres are no-go zones for Jews on a Saturday because of these hate marches. I have nothing at all with anybody supporting the Palestinian cause. We're a democracy. But when you're a Jewish person and you go shopping in our city centres and you see somebody walking down the street with a sign that says Israelis are Nazis or the Israeli Prime Minister is Adolf Hitler, that is Jew hatred, and it is making our community feel more and more insecure. Students on campus are intimidated. As I said, Jews are made to pass a purity test. Are you a Zionist, which is another word for a Jew, or not? If you are, stay away. If you're not, come in, you're welcome. This isn't what it is. Mancunian Jews have played a huge part in making our city the great city it is for 150 years. We're not going anywhere. We're proud Jews. We're going to stay here. But we need help, and we need this intolerance and this racism and this Jew hatred, let's call it what it is, stamped out by wider society without fail and immediately.
Raphi, can I just take you back to something you said a little earlier when I was talking to you about the security at the synagogue? You said you didn't know how he got his vehicle inside. As far as you're concerned, we saw a vehicle outside. We saw a man inside, very close to the building. Do you think that he actually managed to get the vehicle inside the perimeter of the synagogue?
No, apologies. I've seen footage of the gate being opened, so I'm not sure how he managed to get inside. I know he attempted to ram the gate. The vehicle, you can see quite clearly in the footage, is outside the gate, but he managed to get inside. So I'm not sure how he managed to get inside because the footage that we see of him being shot by armed police shows that he's inside the synagogue grounds without actually, thank God, entering the synagogue itself. And the other thing I would say is that, I've heard reports to say that the police response was quick, and thank God it was within 3 minutes. But one of the reasons why I believe it was so quick is because on Jewish festivals, and especially on the High Holy Days, because they are considered to be a higher risk level in terms of attack on the Jewish community, there is an increased police presence around. So, it's incredibly thankful that happened, and that they were able to be there so quickly and deal with this terrorist in such a quick manner, or I fear that more people would have died.
And how do you feel as a person of faith who, when it is a high holy day, as you say, I'm comparing it to Christmas here in the UK. Perhaps that Yom Kippur and Christmas isn't necessarily a straightforward analogy, but it's a day that everybody kicks back. It's a day you look forward to. Do you look towards these big religious events with those feelings, or are you more fearful?
I mean, Yom Kippur is a solemn day. It's a day of atonement. Everybody fasts for 25 hours. Most Jewish people come to synagogue for a period of time, some longer, some shorter. My wife said to me before Rosh Hashanah, which is the other major Jewish New Year holiday that took place 10 days ago, she said, I'm scared to go to synagogue. I don't want to go to synagogue this year. And I turned around to her and I said, we have to go, because we are not going to be cowed by the threats of terrorism or by physical attacks on ourselves, for people who want to target us for a conflict going on 2,500 miles away. And actually, in a way, she was right, because look what happened today in our synagogue to friends of mine. And it scares people. Synagogues went into lockdown. Nobody was allowed to leave for a number of hours because people weren't aware whether this was a lone wolf or part of a more concerted attack on our community. But what I can say very clearly is that as Jewish people, we are proud Jews, and we are not going to be intimidated by these racists, by these anti-Semites. We will continue to play a part in society. We will continue to be proud British Jews contributing to our great country. But it is imperative that our leadership acts now on this, as I said, tsunami of Jew hate that we have experienced across a whole range of sectors and in places and online since October the 7th. Enough is enough, and that means now.